Hello, you're watching Quays News at 5. I'm Matt Baldwin. As International Women's Day has taken place across the globe, Mancunians intended the walk for women. Also coming up, a shocking new trend in vaping could cause a new childhood health crisis.
De-stresses you first thing in the morning, and it just gets you out of bed. These ones are like 5%, which is illegal in the UK to sell.
As we've put restrictions behind us, and has a new boom hit the dog-sitting world? Yeah. But first, it has been 2 weeks since Russia invaded Ukraine. In the last few hours, reports have been emerging of a hospital being bombed in the southern city of Mariupol. Bella Jewell has joined us in the news studio to tell us more. So Bella, what is the latest?
So yes, Matt, this harrowing news comes after earlier today Russia announced they would be announcing a new ceasefire in the city of Mariupol in the south of Ukraine. Now, this is not the first ceasefire that they've announced in order to get people, citizens, out of the city safely. But within hours of that, there is news that 2 wards in a hospital have been bombed, a maternity ward and a children's ward in a hospital. Now, all of this information is coming from Ukrainian officials and it's not yet been verified. However, there is footage emerging on Reuters of a scene of devastation, really. These officials have also talked about numerous casualties, people who are wounded in the hospital having to be moved to other hospitals. So the picture is building and it's feeding into this general sense of desperation in the city. As I mentioned earlier, it's not the first time the Russians have announced a ceasefire and then gone back on it a few hours later. This has happened several times since the start of this week. So people are becoming more and more desperate every day, really. Yeah,
it is harrowing stuff, isn't it? And Mariupol has been one of the worst hit cities in the war, hasn't it?
Yeah, so Mariupol has been besieged by Russian forces, which means that the forces have basically encircled the city, trapping people there. Now, the estimates are that around 20,000 people are still living in the city, unable to get out. And when they have tried in the past, when these humanitarian corridors have opened, often they've been injured or sometimes killed in the shelling. Now, Ukrainian officials have said that over 1,000 people have been killed in the city so far, and they're having to resort to burying people in mass graves because they simply can't deal with the number of losses.
Exactly, and thank you very much for the update, Bella. Thank you. Yesterday, International Women's Day, but some Mancunians want to start their celebrations early. Our correspondent, Liz Fox, has more.
International Women's Day is celebrated globally on the 8th of March, and what a better place to be than Manchester, the home of the suffragettes and Emmeline Pankhurst, who was actually Moss Side born and bred. The history of women is palpable all over the city, especially during Manchester's Walk for Women.
The annual march from Castlefield to the cathedral took place on Sunday after a 2-year break due to coronavirus. Those marching for International Women's Day made themselves seen and definitely heard.
I'm a great supporter of International Women's Day, and it's been so sad that we haven't been able to do this for 2 years. So it's great to be here. I want these women to make as much noise as they possibly can, so that people in Manchester, the rest of Manchester, the rest of the world listen to them.
The leader of the council, who is the first openly LGBT woman to take the role, also made an appearance at the march.
We've been doing this for a number of years, but I think it's important now more than ever to make sure that women come together to say that yes, we can celebrate all of the progress we've had in the last 100 years, but there's so much more to do.
I asked some Mancunian women why they were at the walk.
Coming from a South Asian background, I think for most of my life I've always thought a woman's place was kind of in the house and away from doing anything big, and I just wanted to show that we can do what we want.
To show everyone that women are important, as important as men.
Because it's International Women's Day.
And we're marching for women, aren't we?
It seems that the Walk for Women has regained its place as part of Manchester's radical women's history.
Women's suffrage started here. It's a really highly political city. Manchester was the birthplace of protest, so I think it means more to this city than it does elsewhere.
Liz Fox, Quays News, Manchester.
Thank you for that, Liz. On a normal key chain, you might find your house keys, your car keys, and a cheeky bottle opener. But maybe after watching this, you'll add something more. Here is Liv Snelson to explain.
Drink spiking is at epidemic levels across the country. According to a recent government inquiry,
1 in 10 people have been victim to spiking. But these two students from Manchester think they hold the key to safer nights out.
SafeSips is a spiking prevention device. It fits onto a keychain. We realised spiking was an increasing issue. You know, in November, when we searched up, there was like 200 spiking cases just in that month in Greater Manchester.
According to the Alcohol Education Trust, 15% of women and 7% of men have been spiked. That's something that SafeSips explored as well.
The product itself is transparent, and we've kept it that colour because it's quite gender neutral as well. I think that was our main thing. SafeSips is inclusive, it covers obviously men, women and non-binary people as well.
Some are critical of products like these, suggesting the responsibility should not lie with victims to cover their own backs.
It's not the person's ownership to wear the right scrunchie that has a lid on it, to paint their nails a certain colour, to buy a testing kit. We're trying to raise awareness that it's the culture of the clubs that needs to change, and students need to understand that it's not their fault if they're spiked. I don't want to say to anybody don't go out, or say to anybody make sure you cover your drink or stay with your friends, because again I don't think it's their responsibility.
I put this idea to Zach and Adam.
You know, we live in a world and society when a lot of bad things happen. You don't want those things to happen to you, and you expect it to not be your problem, but at some point in time you have to take matters in your own hands.
So thanks, Liv. Within the space of 1 week, 2 new mental health crisis cafes have opened in East Cheshire. I'm joined by reporter Amelia Shalish, who's been to the new Western Hub in Macclesfield. So Amelia, what is a mental health crisis cafe?
So a mental health crisis cafe is really a non-clinical space for those who are suffering in a crisis with their mental health. So the new venue in Macclesfield is open for referrals from GPs as well as self-referrals from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So I spoke to the coordinator of the hub, Kim Blissett, and she really spoke about how there's a need for this to be put into place across the whole of the UK.
I think it would be silly not to, just with the actual benefits of what we're offering and the support that we can give to healthcare professionals. Actually, people know that they can come to these cafes rather than going to sit in A&E for 6 hours, which for both parties, you know, the NHS and the person waiting, is not good. What they need is just somebody to have a friendly face, safe environment, and to talk to about those really deep things that we can actually really help them just process it and get through.
So what activities are on offer at these cafes?
So actually that's really based on the needs of the individual, but the cafe offers a range of activities from arts and crafts and gardening, and also things like cooking and baking, and the cafe really is there to support people if they need a quiet space and, of course, a space to have a cup of tea and a chat. So I also spoke to Sophie, who's a charity worker, and she told me of her experiences of using a mental health crisis cafe and how that benefited her.
Yeah, so I've gone to a few meditation groups, had a cheap cup of tea, sat and just had someone to listen to me talking, really. I wish there were more spaces like this. I wish there were more places that could act as safe places.
Now, if you live in Manchester, you must be familiar with Piccadilly Gardens, but how would you feel if it was transformed beyond recognition? Rebecca O'Meara has more.
Manchester City Council is investing in a makeover for Piccadilly Gardens, the first major redevelopment it will undergo since 2002. What do the locals think of how it looks now?
I don't think it's that nice. And I haven't lived here my whole life, so I'm not attached to it, so that's why it's easy to say that.
I think it needs some flowers, I think it needs some greenery, and I think the council need to sort it out to show that they care about Manchester, because Manchester has a lot of love and we need to show that in the community.
The area experiences high crime rates, including antisocial behaviour, theft and drug use. Dr. Tim Pascoe is an expert in community safety.
From the outside of the park, as you say, there's no attractiveness about it. It creates an austere atmosphere that doesn't say come in, and there's no form of kind of ownership there. There's no kind of signposting. All of that creates a space with lack of feeling.
The first part of the redevelopment project has already been commissioned.
For safety, you would need better lighting for the actual area that you're actually walking on, rather than lighting up a wall. So aesthetically, it's an improvement, but it's not really improving the security of the area.
From this image alone, I don't think that this is going to make a huge difference.
Although Doctors Pascoe and Sonbley seem pessimistic about this first phase of the redevelopment, further investments and plans are to be announced, with a total of £25 million pledged. Rebecca Rumman, Quays News.
Thanks, Rebecca. In a worrying development, it's been reported that children as young as 10 are becoming addicted to illegal, single-use disposable vapes called geek bars. Isabella Timpany finds out why they are so popular.
If you've been to a pub club or even just scrolling through TikTok, it's likely you've witnessed the new geek bar craze. But what are geek bars? Geek bars are single-use disposable vapes that come in an array of different flavours.
One geek bar, which usually lasts a day, contains 20 milligrams of nicotine, which is the equivalent of 50 cigarettes. But it's important to remember that vaping is 95% less harmful than smoking. Lauren Chan is one of many young people addicted to vaping and frequently buys illegal vapes from her local corner shop.
I didn't even smoke in the first place, but like vaping just de-stresses you first thing in the morning, and you know, it just gets you out of bed. These ones are like 5%, which is illegal in the UK to sell. Obviously, I think that's why it made me ill. It tastes dodgy, it tastes a bit burnt, sometimes a bit air, like not smooth air.
Robin is a pastoral manager at Ashton Academy and is currently fighting a nicotine epidemic at her school.
I've had to confiscate a lot of vapes off students. We've had to do searches, random searches. We're actually doing random searches now on students who we think may have them. It's become a big money-making thing for a lot of students. They'll have them, leave them maybe in the toilets, and then another student will go and pick it up there.
Gillian, a mother from Glasgow, was shocked to find out her 11-year-old son was vaping.
I was getting my little boy out of the shower and he'd been sleeping in his tracksuit bottoms. And I went to empty his pockets to put them in the wash, and he started pulling the trousers off of me. I was like, what's in here? Pulled out two of the...
Lizzie Jenkins is a managing director of her own vaping regulation service.
Got your 13-year-old that's never smoked, never done any sort of e-liquid, and then automatically they're jumping to a 20 milligram, which is the highest strength. They're going to get ill from it. They've just given themselves an absolute nicotine rush that their body can't handle.
Thanks, Bella. Heard of International Meatball Day? Earlier, Dan Woodburn marked this occasion.
It's National Meatball Day, and I'm here at a brilliant cafe. What's it called?
Latsam.
Latsam. And how long has Latsam been open?
Been open 12 months, so just before in the pandemic we reopened it.
Now, Latsam is a Swedish cafe or Scandinavian?
Scandinavian, yeah. Scandinavian.
And of course, this means that you've got meatballs on your menu. Did you know that it was National Meatball Day in America today?
No, I didn't know that, no.
Did you know this, Sophie?
I had no idea. This is such a random event, but they put them on. It happens.
Now, do the two of you like meatballs?
Yeah.
I've never actually tried, I've tried Italian meatballs, but never tried Swedish meatballs before, so...
Never before?
Never tried them before. Never been to IKEA before, so never had a chance to try any.
Sorry. It's just, I'm incredulous that you've never had any kind of Scandinavian meatball before.
No, probably not Scandinavian food in general, but especially not meatballs, yeah.
Well, brilliant. Before we tuck into these, I've got a couple of questions to ask. So, what do you put in your meatballs?
So, these are the meat ones. So in these ones it's half pork, so minced shoulder of pork, minced rump of beef, breadcrumbs, eggs, salt and pepper, that's it.
Lovely. And what about the vegan option that you've got on your menu?
We're using ballotti beans with that instead of a meat, and then no eggs. So it's just ballotti beans with breadcrumbs and seasoning.
And do you have a preference between the two of them?
Both nice. Both great.
Are you a meatballs with or without gravy kind of guy?
With gravy, I think, is the best one for them.
Well, thank you very much. We will get to trying these. Is there anything else you'd like to say about meatballs in general?
I can't believe you never tried them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Enjoy. I hope you enjoy.
Thank you. Just before you do go, it is also British Pie Week in this country, actually. So, do you have a favourite British pie?
British pies are pretty good generally, aren't they? Generally all round. Steak pies are nice. Suet puddings are good.
I
think steak pie is my favourite as well.
Well, I'm also a big fan of vegan alternative to a steak and ale pie, but you know, it is what it is, and it is very nice. So yeah, thank you very much for this. We will get back to you, and I'd say with compliments to the chef, but you are he, so
Enjoy.
Thank you very much.
Swedish meatball.
Right, cheers.
To that tasty comparison, Dan. And finally, the UK has seen a boom in people using dog sitting services. Our reporter Lauren Barkley went out to find more.
Like over 3 million other people in the UK, I became a pet owner over lockdown.
Working from home meant care for Millie was simple. Now, with restrictions eased, some owners need help. From dog walkers to daycare sites and even a Tinder-esque app, there is no shortage of people willing to care for your four-legged friend.
Since lockdown, there's definitely been like an increase in more people have got dogs. So we've got a really long waiting list for dogs to be booked in for trials. It's probably the longest it's ever been.
I do think going back to like reality, shall we say, is kind of giving people a wake-up call, and they've realised that dogs do need a lot more attention than you can provide when lockdown isn't a thing anymore.
If this is the equivalent of a children's nursery, what about the nanny option? Borrow My Doggy connects owners with trusted, vetted if you like, local people who just love caring for canines. Freya and her Japanese Spitz, Mila, are members.
It started when Mila was about 6 months old. You would put up a doggy profile and then you'll get notifications when someone's liked your dog.
Borrowers and owners then message, and it can lead to more than just walkies. Charlotte from London became a borrower 7 years ago.
I met a wonderful couple. We got really, really close and became actual friends. And then they had a summer party one year, and that's where I met my husband. I not only met my husband, but the borrowers who I borrowed the doggy from, was one of the ones that actually legally performed the ceremony and married us.
So it seems we no longer need to be worried about doggy separation anxiety, which means it's probably time to create Millie a profile. She'll be literally begging for likes. Lauren Barkley, Quays News.
And that's all we have time for today's Quays News. Feel free to follow our social media at Quays News on Facebook, Twitter. Goodbye.